everybody. Nice to see you. So full disclosure, I have a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm often just start talking and I'm bad at clicking. So let's see what happens. Again, my name is Reshma Saujani. I'm the CEO and founder of Girls Who Code. Full disclosure, I'm not a hacker. I'm not an engineer. I'm not even a coder. I'm learning right now. I was one of those girls who grew up terrified of math and science growing up. My family came here as political refugees from Uganda. And both of my parents were engineers, and my father would sit me around the dinner table and he'd say, "What's 2 + 2?" And I would say 5 over and over again. So he essentially gave up on me. When I was in college, I got my first B in chemistry, and then I never took a math or science class ever again. Who knows what I'm talking about? And so this fear of math and science just haunted me my entire life. And then in 2010, I ran for United States Congress. I was working in an attorney in a financial services institution, and I was coming home in the fetal position every day. I hated my job. You know, if you asked me when I was a little girl what I wanted to do, I would have told you that I wanted to change the world. And I remember watching my mentor, Hillary Clinton, give this concession speech where she had this line where she said, you know, just because I failed doesn't mean you shouldn't try too. And I literally thought that she was speaking to me. And so I walked into my boss's office at 33 and I quit. And I decided to run for United States Congress as the first South Asian American woman to run against an 18-year incumbent because I thought that that was a great idea. I had a 100-page policy book and a banging website and a 1% chance of winning. That was it. But it was absolutely the best 10 months of my life because every part of my life was like jumping off a cliff. You know, my first television interview was on Chris Matthews. My life was run by 20-year-olds. I had never asked anyone for a check before, and all of a sudden my supporters were everyone from Jack Dorsey to John Mack. And on election day, I swore I was going to win. And I remember sitting there in my victory party that never happened, watching the television screen not go past 19%. And all I wanted to do was cry. And the next day I did. And you know, we live in a society that's very ashamed of failure, right? And especially as women, we feel like we have to do the job before we apply for the job. And all I kept thinking about was all the people that I had let down, especially all the young girls that I had met on the campaign trail. You know, when you're running for office, you go to a lot of schools, you meet a lot of parents. And I'd be in the Upper East Side, and I'd be in a school, and there'd be 100 boys in a robotics lab. And then I'd be in another school in Queens, and there'd be one girl using a computer that was 15 years old. I am a feminist with a capital F, and I don't want to live in a world that's run by men. And when I look at what's happening with our technology jobs, it's quite alarming. You know, I don't say this kind of in a small way, but I really believe that the lack of women in computer science and technology is the most important domestic issue of our nation's time. So the White House released a study that said there's going to be 1.4 million jobs that are open in the computer science related fields in the next 5 years. And at the current rate, only 29% of them are going to be filled by American graduates, and only 3% of them are going to be filled by women. Think about that. All the statistics we've shown, you know, women, we essentially rule the economy right now, right? We're the majority of the labor force, the majority of breadwinners, the majority in college. But if 70% of STEM jobs are in computer science, and this is what our numbers look like, we have a problem. So in the 1980s, 37% of computer science graduates were women. Today, that number is between 12 and 18%. It is the only industry where you've seen a decline in women. There's a report that just came out by NPR. In the 1970s, 10% of doctors and lawyers were women, right? And now that number is 45%. Why? Because we were constantly inundated with these images of women who looked like us, and we decided that's what I want to do. Why is this important? So this issue is important. I don't believe in gender parity for the sake of gender parity, but it's important to get more women into these fields for the types of products and the types of problems that they want to solve. And I'm going to be talking more about that in a moment. People always ask me, how many people have little girls either as daughters or in their lives? So you'll appreciate this. You know, I spoke to 400 little girls last week, and I said, how many of you have ever said, I hate math? every hand was raised, right? I said, how many of you ever said, I hate to read? No hands. Why is it acceptable, right, that we live in a society where it's okay for girls to do that? So when we talk about the decline in computer science, that started happening in the 1980s. What was happening in the 1980s? What came out? The personal computer. And the personal computer was basically only marketed at boys. What else came out at that point? Revenge of the Nerds, Weird Science, who knows what I'm talking about, right? We were constantly inundated with these dorky images of boys, and girls said, you know what? This is not for me. Unlike the lawyers and the doctors that saw Grey's Anatomy and Ellie McBeal and all these cool women with these awesome shoes and these short skirts being beautiful and smart, they were inundated with these guys. And that trend has continued for the past 30 years. I can still walk into Forever 21 and buy a t-shirt that says I'm allergic to algebra. Why is that cool? Don't even get me started on the Silicon Valley show where every depiction of a woman is either a B-list model or an assistant. There are 0 depictions of female role models that are engineers and hackers that look like me and you, and our girls are listening. Who said a hackathon has to be about drinking Red Bull and wearing a hoodie and not showering all day? Like, what girl wants to do that? I don't, right? So we have created this cultural myth around technology, and one by one by one, our young girls have said, I don't want to do this. This isn't for me. So as I lost my election, I decided that I wanted to do something about all those little girls that I had seen on the campaign trail. And that's where I came up with the idea of Girls Who Code. So in 2012, I created a program called Girls Who Code to really meet girls where they're at and teach them how to computer program. And the model was to take 20 young women and to embed them in a technology company. So to put them in a company like Facebook or Square or Intel or Intuit and show them how to computer program by doing project-based learning, right? So every young girl out there has seen Clueless and they all want to make the Pocket Closet app. We make the Pocket Closet app. You know, we build things and we create things that are about changing the world. And that first summer, it was really tremendous in terms of what happened. This is Julia. Julia in 2012 would come to AppNexus every day, just a little bit hungry. She came from a family of 5 where her father was a substitute custodian, barely putting food on the table every day. And every day she'd come home and she'd do her Girls Who Code, assignments, and her daddy would say, well, what are you working on, Julia? And she'd say, Daddy, I'm learning how to code. And he'd say, will you teach me? She started teaching her daddy how to code, and now he's on his way to being a substitute custodian, making $80,000 a year, and making sure that nobody in that family is hungry. Cora, another one of our young women, was 5 years old when her father got diagnosed with MS. And it was then that she decided, I'm going to be a doctor because I'm going to save my father's life. And she didn't see the connection between technology and medicine until Girls Who Code, where in her last 2 weeks, she built an algorithm to help detect whether a cancer is benign or malignant. She's 16 years old. We went from 20 programs in 2012 to this year we will teach 3,000 girls by the end of December. And we have built programs in companies all across America, including Facebook and Square and Twitter and Intel, Intuit, Amazon, Verizon, Microsoft. Every single major technology company over the summer has 20 young girls learning how to computer program. And you see, it's not important because we want more women. It's important because every time I visit a program, whether it's in Miami or San Francisco or Boston or Seattle, and I look at the products that our girls are building, they're not just trying to build a video game. And when they're building a video game, they're building Tampon Run. So let me tell you about Tampon Run, because it's really, really awesome. So Sophie and Andy were watching. Everyone knows Governor Wendy running for governor in Texas. Everything that happened last year with the abortion bill and how she stood up and fought against that. Well, when that fight was happening, anytime a woman would go into the legislature in Texas, the police officers would compensate their tampons and their maxi pads because they were afraid that they would throw them. But they let people keep their guns. And Sophie and Andy said, you know what? That's crazy. How do we live in a society where we can't talk about menstruation? We can't talk about our reproductive rights. They won't be protected, but we can have people keep their guns. I want to change that, especially when across the world, the #1 reason why girls drop out of school is because they start menstruating. So they built a game called Tampon Run, which shoots tampons at you, and you can jump really high and grab a tampon box and get like an extra 100 points. And this game has gone viral to the fact that, I swear, a little boy has tried to steal it. And they've had to fight him. And they've gone through this whole exercise and experience, but no boy was going to create Tampon Run. They may have stolen it, but a boy wasn't going to wake up and be like, gosh, we really need to educate the world about menstruation. Let's create a video game. And, so there's Tampon Run. And our girls in California, Miami created Therma Alert because there were so many children that were dying this past summer because parents were leaving their kids in their car seats. So they created an Arduino to basically put it into the car seat so that you would get an alert. They built apps on how to help fight bullying. They built other applications to how to help teach young people different languages because we live in New York City and so many people speak so many different languages. They were constantly thinking about, how do I make my world a better place? And this is why it is so important for us to make sure that our young women, whether they want to be Beyonce or Hillary Clinton, it's so critical for them to get access to technology and to get the skill sets that are going to allow them to solve the problems of the future. And what's really powerful is that, last year, 7,500 women graduated in computer science. Girls Who Code is growing at 400x every year. If we continue this growth pattern on our own, we can close the gender gap. And we're not on our own. There's so many amazing organizations that are out there that are continuing to do this work. And so, I, kind of stand here as I click and close. These are some of our statistics. So, again, in the country, 0.3% of high school girls are interested in computer science. Crazy low number. 25,000 kids took the AP Computer Science exam last year. 4,000 were girls. In 3 states, no girls took it. One of those states were Mississippi. I think we all know that there are girls in Mississippi. 99% of our girls are graduating and they want careers in technology. 95% of them are planning to study computer science. We have about 80 girls right now that are in freshman year in college right now taking computer science courses as we speak. So we're really seeing this trend being reversed day after day after day. So again, I don't say this lightly when I really believe that this topic is really kind of the most important in our nation for us to solve. And I really do believe that it's something that we can actually help shift and change in our lifetime. So I guess I'd love to do questions.
Terrific. So some of the women in this audience may feel that they're a little too old to do coding and learn it. Is there a way that they might come up with a technology company and move forward without having the ability to code?
Absolutely. First of all, I don't think it's ever too late. I am learning how to code, and it's annoying and frustrating. But the best feeling in the world when you actually figure it out. And I really can't describe a better feeling. So I never ever think it's too late. And I think part of what we teach our girls, which I think is important for non-technical people to have when they're starting, especially technical companies, is just the language, right? Understanding how to speak, how to communicate with your engineers. And part of dabbling with coding, whether you're just getting on Scratch or picking up a book, is to get familiar with that type of language. And so I don't think you have to learn how to code, but I do think that you have to be familiar with the language.
I have 8 granddaughters.
Yay!
1 grandson. I won't reveal my age, but because of the nature of my work, I'm learning to code. I have to learn to code.
Yeah.
So it's possible. And I'm a great advocate of my granddaughters doing stuff other than older.
So are you a role model for them? Are they learning?
From a distance, yeah. But the 2 that just moved to near where we are, you bet, we're going to kick some butt.
Terrific, terrific. Questions from the audience?
To kind of piggyback on that, are you ever thinking about approaching even a younger audience for your program?
Yeah.
Because right now it seems like the girls are making it in high school.
Yep.
Do you ever want it to be like a middle school thing?
We do. I mean, I
So
started.
just repeat the question.
So the question was, should you be starting earlier? Yeah, I mean, listen, if I could, I would start at 6 years old, because as young as you can basically get. So studies show that I hate math thing starts around 8th grade, right? That up until 8th grade, they're really, like, girls and boys are kind of, they like to tinker and play with things kind of the same. But that 8th grade is kind of when that nerd dynamic happens. And it's not, it's not the reasons why women are opting out of technology when they get to like Facebook or Twitter, and there's actually potentially, problems in the industry, which we can talk about later. It's more that they just don't think it's cool. And then when they look at the robotics class, it's a bunch of dorky boys, and they're like, I don't want to hang with them. And so part of what we're trying to do is really make technology cool. And for a lot of girls who code is cool, which is great. But I started in high school because I wanted to make sure, we have a very clear success metric. So for girls who code, our success metric is getting girls to major or minor in computer science. If I don't achieve that in the next 10 years, I have failed. Our organization has failed. So to have started at 5, we just would have lost 20 years of where I feel like I can't wait to help change this problem. So we are really in the business of kind of converting girls that are kind of scientifically a little bit inclined, because there is no gender gap in math and science anymore. It's really in computer science, in the T and the E and in STEM that you're seeing that issue. Our Girls Who Code clubs, so we have Girls Who Code clubs, which are 2 hours of coding a week. We have them in 20 states. There are girls on Navajo reservations right now learning how to code. And that we start at 6th grade. And then we're also thinking about different products that we can actually create that will start younger.
Great.
I'm curious, do you provide support other than the hard skills of coding, actually navigating the tech world once they go on to college and to the workforce? Because it's not just the skills of knowing how to code, but it's navigating the cultural environment that there's.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of confidence. Oh, the question is, are you doing more than just teaching to code? Like, what are the other type of leadership skills that you're training? And we're doing exactly that. So we teach public speaking. We teach leadership. We teach sisterhood. I mean, the biggest model for me personally and for Girls Who Code is, our hashtag sisterhood. How do we build a community and pay it forward? And part of changing what's happening in the technology sector is simply infiltration, to get enough women that you're basically changing the culture and really rooting out some of the bad stuff that we see happening. It's also confidence building. So, the median, think about this, half of our girls are from underserved communities. So Google did a study that you can take girls, regardless of whether they've gone to Dalton or Brearley or Bushwick, and they're basically starting in terms of computer science at the exact same place. So think about how powerful that is, that technology can actually be the great equalizer. And we see that happening in our classrooms. Well, we'll have girls from 3 generations of public housing, and they're just killing it by the end of our program. The median score, we give everybody a technical survey when they finish our program, is an 89. That technical survey is the equivalent of a Stanford CS 101 exam, and the median score is an 89, whether they're the girls in Detroit, Miami, the Silicon Valley, or New York. So the potential for computer science to really shift the opportunity of families and to lift them up into the middle class is massive, And so really getting them to learn all these other soft skills is really important. And they're doing it. I mean, they shock me. They'll stand up in front of the UN, in front of the White House, in front of they literally said to John Donahue, at eBay, your API sucks. They're fearless in talking to Cheryl. I mean, they've just gotten so much exposure to all of these titans and a lot of men that they've been, they're just so unabashed at what they've built and what they've created and their capability, their aptitude. It's just powerful to watch.
One more question. No more questions, so I'm going to ask. You very briefly touched on it, sort of the programmer
culture.
What can be done to sort of change that? Because that's sort of not under your domain, so to speak.
I mean, I think our girls are changing it already.
Yeah.
It's about changing the myth or the caricature of what it looks like. You had a really powerful thing happen at Grace Hopper with the CEO of Microsoft last week. where you had a statement made and boom, I've never seen something so quick, right? These all of us just got on it so fast and said, this is not right. And part of that, he was speaking to an audience of, over 8,000 geek girls and chic geek girls, and so it's happening. We just have to make sure that we continue to infiltrate these companies because, we own the internet. Women make 85% of consumer purchases. We Facebook more, we tweet more. The fact that that there are not senior female leaders in Pinterest or Instagram, Facebook, or besides Cheryl, and Twitter blows me away. Right? Because that's their consumer base. And I think that that's where Girls Who Code has actually found so much kinship with the CEOs of these companies is because they want women too. Because they're just going to sell more stuff the more of us that there are actually creating their products.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific.